Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here from Duffin Media, and welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the place, the home, to find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Your most authentic voice, which is always your best voice, right? Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, increase sales, make $1 billion, find the person of your dreams. I can't guarantee those last two, but we're working on those. But all the other ones, we do. We're thrilled that you come back. And as we are now continue to say happily on iHeartMedia, Odyssey platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch of other places, we're thrilled that you're here. And you know how we get all of those things to come true? We have way cool people who have walked the walk and that are generous with their time and their information, because I believe wholeheartedly that they have found their authentic voice and they're generous enough to help. So great to have you back. And we get to introduce today somebody, I'm a Philadelphia native, and so when we talk neighborhoods, and we're not going to localize this too much, but I get a smile on my face when I get to talk to another Philly native, not just a life coach, but a published author, 2 books, by the way, which I will get you the titles for momentarily, has had a great run of success, whether it is in business, in real estate, and now helping people improve their lives. Coach Joe Turchi, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, John. I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate the little Philadelphia discussion, but I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
So it is absolutely our pleasure. And look, folks, what we will touch on today, we got a good one today. What I thought was this, that as you will be hearing and watching this episode, folks, in the midst of the holiday season, whatever holiday, or as many holidays as you feel compelled to celebrate all of them. There's a couple of thoughts that run through my mind, which is, first off, look, it's supposed to be a happy time of year. And the fact of the matter is, for many people it is, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be, and I don't mean to throw a downer on this, but you get these opportunities as the year gets later and later in play, that you get these chances to either make change, progress, reflect, whatever the case may be. One of the reasons, Coach, that I thought it was great in terms of timing was because of how much you have helped people. I'm going to identify right off the bat one of the books that I love, The 7 Laws and Principles That Govern Success. And that's one of the things that I'll touch upon today. And folks, here's your second title. And these titles and links will be in the bio, so you don't have to do any hard, heavy lifting here. These links will be there, so you will know. It's called the Quotationary Manifesto. But before I get to any of that, heck, I got a Philly guy with me. And it just makes me happy. Folks, if you know me, you know I was born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia, and it just makes me happy. Joe, talk about your background and that cool neighborhood that inspired a movie. I want to hear.
Well, in the seven laws, there is a kind of a preface that I had one of my friends who's also extremely successful. Mm-hmm. I asked him to do the forward for it, and he's the one that tied in the Rocky movie and the South Philadelphia home, and but that's where I grew up. I grew up in South Philadelphia, and I know you know for the listeners. You won't know Bishop Neumann, but I went to Bishop Neumann High School. But prior to that, and I only say that for John because he's from the Northeast, and the Northeast and South Philly always had a little conflict, but we love each other anyway.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, I grew up in a small little row home, and my father and mother. Awesome parents. I mean, awesome. But we had 9 children. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. And I can tell you, when I grew up, there was 5 boys in one small little bedroom. I mean, tiny bedroom. You know, and we barely had a closet. And right next to us, there was a doorway to go into the second small room in this little row home, and there was 4 of my sisters. So we were jam packed. In the back room, which was the smallest room, was my parents and my uncle Will, who was an older uncle from my mother's side. He lived with us too, so he slept with my parents. So the real key for me is I was trying to figure out if my uncle Will was living in the bedroom with them, how he was able to create 9 children. That used to confuse me all the time.
Well, listen, you got a lot of education that you got since that point, so I'm guessing you figured it out. And folks, if you happen to be one of the lucky ones watching this podcast as opposed to listening, you probably see this pretty spectacular background behind our guest right now that has very little resemblance to somewhere where 5 boys would be slammed into. Listen, I know in growing up in Philadelphia, there were 3 boys in one bedroom, 2 in another. In terms of where you launch from, it never felt unusual. When I went back, my mom moved out of the place, and this was 15 years ago, and my dad had passed, right? And we went back in. The sizes were, to me, ridiculous. These are basically glorified dorm rooms. You know what I mean? And that's being kind. You know?
I agree.
Right. So
it was incredible. It was incredible to actually think through the process when you have, we always try to do better for our kids. So, my kids grew up and each of them had a room, and the rooms weren't gigantic, because I was still going through the process of what we call success, raising a family. But at the same time, one of their rooms, 5 of us were in one of their rooms. It was just like, so, and that's what we always try to do. But, to go back to that whole process, I was a South Philly boy, and I grew up different than you. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood.
Yep, and I'm more of the Irish side, but I got you.
I know.
So the culture is there. Yep.
Yeah. But, how we grew up in South Philly was each section, there was a section for the Irish, there was a section for the Italians. But we all got along because we played a lot of sports, and sports was the key. And sports was the key for the melting pot. But I really want to take this to a different level in terms of a message for your listeners, in terms of my parents were awesome. Love, and they taught so many great values, which makes me today, makes my family today, because God and family were the 2 most important things in our house. But money was not. Money was absolutely not important at all. And the way I grew up, I barely, education was cool, but it wasn't like the coolest thing for my parents, in terms of my father was in the restaurant business. And when I say that, he didn't own a restaurant. He worked at the restaurant. He was a waiter. If you go back, John, some of your listeners might not remember, but the Latin Casino was a very, very popular.
In Cherry Hill, New Jersey, may I? Is
Yep.
that? Oh my God! I remember my parents go. That was a big night out for my folks. Was going there to see somebody or other that I recall. That was a big night out. Coach Joe, what's it like? So from that upbringing, you become a Penn State grad, and that's a big deal, period. But why was it a big deal in your house?
Well, because I'm going to back up a little bit, because, again, from my standpoint, I want to just send a message to the listeners: never quit.
Love it.
Never, no matter what happens. Because what happened with me is, I went to high school, and my English teacher, now he had a right to say this, because I read 1 book in 4 years of English class in my high school. I had no desire to really get an education, because it was almost like my imprint was there. I was going into the restaurant business.
Well, like you said, your family thought it was, it wasn't the top priority that working was. So,
so I went in there, but I didn't like it. So I graduated high school with my English teacher. The last day, and I read 1 book. He said, "Turchi, you're going to be the biggest ditch digger I ever met in my life." Now that I'm going to fast forward because I'm an educator. I was a teacher for 32 years in Philadelphia. That is not one time would I ever say that to a student. It was just not a good educational person to give somebody on their last day of school, send them out there. But long and short of it, I deserved it. With one book, maybe I deserved that comment, but I still would never do it to any of my students ever, because I've always been an encourager. Let's see if we can get the best out of a student. Long and short of it is, I had to go to a prep school, get into Penn State. I get into Penn State, and again, you got to remember, I was broke. My whole life, we were broke.
Understood.
I can remember, John, and this is the truth. My father used to buy stuff on the eye, which meant today credit. And on Friday mornings, I'd go to the butcher shop because I was the oldest of 9. I'd have to get breakfast for us, and he would shut me out sometimes. So we didn't eat breakfast on Fridays because my father didn't pay the bill. It got too high. So at that point, you just have, I know for a fact now that poor feeling was not settling in me. So I go to Penn State and I get my education, and I graduate from Penn State. And, again, for your listeners, I wasn't the brightest, sharpest knife in the drawer at the time. At the time, I flipped the script for sure, because I'm not going to sound egotistic, but I've read so many books over my years that I consider myself an authority now.
I love that you went from one book to all of that as well. Do you recall when the switch was flipped? And by the way, that's a hard expression for me to say. When was the switch flipped? Do you have a recollection as to,
No question about it. No question about it.
Talk to me.
I graduate Penn State. I'm so fired up. I get my first teaching job, which again, this is like 1974. I get my first teaching job. I just came home from Penn State, living away, and now I got to live back as an adult. I'm back in the same row home with 9 children. 9 children. And it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad, because I had a roof over my head. But I started teaching, and I taught right in South Philly, which that was my roots. I was comfortable with that. What I wasn't comfortable with is, after 4 years of college and expenses and debt, they give me this contract, and I was going to make $8,900 a year. That was my first job. I'm thinking $8,900 a year. I'm going to be broke again. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
So I said, I have to do something. And again, I can remember in 1976, after teaching a couple of years, I said, I have to do something different. Now I wasn't a reader, but I'm looking at all these infomercials that says, buy real estate, double your money, all these other things. All I did, John, was pick up a couple real estate books. It launched me. That's why if you take number 7, my principle number 7 in my book, the 7 laws and principles that govern success. The 7th law is readers are leaders. I'm going to just keep.
Can we focus on that a little bit, right? The readers are leaders. This is significant. Walk me through a little bit as to how and in what way, how it impacted you and how you share that with others.
It's to me, I pick up the first book, the real estate books. I read them. Nobody was educating me. I read them. It gave me the tools. And that's why books are tools to get us to another level. I mean, and I can give you so many books right here, and I'll walk through it, but I can give you a book right now, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Changed my life, changed my entire life. This cabin I'm living in right now, it relates to the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, not little. And I'll just tell you, I have a grandson. He's a little redhead. And in my family, they start calling him Little Red. I called the timeout and an audible, and I told my family, I said, we cannot call him Little Red. We need to call him Big Red.
Big Red.
I don't care how the size is. Big is better than little, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. But anyway, I read this real estate book and I invested in my first property, which was a
Right.
duplex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I've shared this story with many people just so they can get the whole picture. McDonald's is a franchise,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a franchise that is duplicated exactly the same every single time. You get a
Right.
hamburger in Seattle, Washington right now, or you get a hamburger in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. It's the same hamburger.
Mhm.
So everything's duplicated. So what I did was I took that process of duplication from my reading of the books,
Mhm.
and I said, if I could buy one property, I could buy another one. And I did it. Now that takes courage, though. It takes guts. And it kind of takes, an attitude, okay?
Mhm.
And now if you go back, my fifth principle
Mhm.
in my book is attitude.
Dude.
So I broke this book down
Mhm.
into it's kind of like seven laws and principles, but there's four of them
Mhm.
that we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting.
Mhm.
First four about goal setting:
Mhm.
definite a purpose, establish a deadline,
Mhm.
action plan, and write the plan down. That's most important for your listeners. Write it down. And this is not me. This is all people that I have read that I consider my mentors in my books. I didn't really have a mentor when I was growing up, but I consider the authors my mentors.
So let me ask you something before you
Sure.
continue. And the question is this: you did something in this process which is unusual, and I want to focus on that. You talked about one of the seven principles, like it's one of the seven laws. I mean, and you talked about the action steps. So there's a lot of people in the world that become avid readers and have libraries of things that of influential and of influence. And there's far fewer that take the action to do something. The first time when you talked about that first property, hey, and that took guts and that took attitude. And I love the way you say that because that feels Philly to me too. When you accent the attitude. But what do you think got you what pushed you? What pushed you to take that gutsy action?
There's no question in my mind, in my heart, I did not want to be poor the rest of my life.
Okay.
I just grew up for 24 years,
Mhm.
still at 24 years old,
Mhm.
poor. I didn't want to be in the restaurant business and watch my whole family and me be a part of. Now, listen, my family was awesome.
Yeah.
It was more love than money for sure,
Mhm.
but I just didn't want to be poor.
Okay.
That was it. And growing up that way, it just was, again, it was in my heart. I got to do something bigger and better or something different. If
Okay,
I call
great.
it different.
Love
So I just took a shot. I
Yeah.
really took a shot. I can tell you this. When my kids were growing up, which I'll fast forward a little bit,
Yeah.
there's three words that they were not allowed to use in my house.
Mm.
The first word, and this was an actual process that we would do every time a new dictionary would come into my house. I would call my three children, and we used to have team meetings. I used to call them team meetings, and they used to go, "Oh no, Dad, another
As
team."
kids. As kids.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. And I used to take the dictionary, the brand new dictionary,
Right.
have my son go get the razor blade, and we'd cut the word "quit" out of the
Oh my
dictionary.
God. Oh my God.
They never knew the definition of quit because it was not allowed in our house.
Got it.
The word "can't." We can never use the word "can't"
Mm-hmm.
in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a movie, Star Wars, and there's a piece in there that Luke Skywalker says to Yoda,
Mm-hmm.
"Yoda, I'm trying."
Mm-hmm.
And
No try, just do.
just do. Well, my brother Michael, who's an adult, I call him Luke Skywalker because about 4 or 5 years ago, he said to me, he says, "Joey, I'm trying."
Mhm.
I said, Michael, please, there is no try. There's only do.
Just do.
So he calls me Yoda. The long and short of it is,
Way worse. There are way worse nicknames in the world than that. Anyway, so go ahead, man.
my point is this: it still goes back to attitude, attitude,
Mhm.
attitude.
Mhm.
I mean, and in my book, I have a quote, which is my favorite attitude quote by Charles Swindoll.
Mhm.
And he just says, to summarize it, he says, it's 10% of what happens to us
Mhm.
and 90% of how we react to it.
Mm.
So my reaction was, all right, this is happening to me. I
Mhm.
went to four years of school, thought I was going to be this successful guy,
Mhm.
and that was not happening. I ended up getting a second job ice skating in Kensington at one of the ice rinks. I was an ice hockey coach,
Love.
trainer, whatever.
Yep.
So I got two
Love.
jobs now,
Love. Mhm.
still two jobs, and
Mhm.
I started investing in real estate with no concept of whether it's going to work or not.
Mhm.
But I duplicated. Before
Mhm.
you know it, I had 4 or 5 rental properties. So I'm managing them.
Mhm.
But our life still is in a, it turns out to be a transition. You're always transitioning and growing. In
Mhm.
fact, I have a book here and I'm going to recommend to folks. It's called The Laws of Lifetime Growth by Dan Sullivan.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for this.
All this is saying is
Mhm.
continue your personal development journey.
Mhm.
Even today,
Mhm.
I mean, I constantly go to other authors
Mhm.
to find out what they're doing.
Mhm.
And again, I consider them my mentors, but I refuse not to grow.
Mm.
I
Mm.
refuse.
Mhm.
That's it.
Hey, you
That
just gave a quote, and I loved it from your book. I wanted, if you don't mind, there's a couple of other quotes. Uh, couple. There's an endless array of great quotes in your book, The Quotationary Manifesto. Um, the full-on title, A Positive Daily Dose. I'm sorry, let me do that better. A positive daily dose of inspiration to instill motivation and undergo transformation. And to me, I saw some quotes that I found fascinating from there as well too. Here's one that I happen to love, and it's under the topic of champion. And to me, in terms of not just feel good, but the mindset of a champion. Hey, Coach Dana Cavalier, if you're listening, shout out to you, who talks about the Champions Academy. But I love this quote, and it's from Rod Gilbert. And you were talking about your hockey background, right? So that's why I thought of it too. That it says, champions do not believe in chance. As strong as my legs are, it is my mind that has made me a champion. I love that, man. I love that. And I'll repeat. So you talk about your ongoing education.
this this book
Yeah.
has been in the making for 12 years.
Wow.
12 years. And I
Mhm.
can go back to remembering what I would do is I'd read
Mhm.
these quotes.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I said, these are so valuable.
Mhm.
What can I do with them?
Mm.
I literally created a library of all these quotes.
Mm.
I just read them and kept them in a library. And when I say library, like a file,
Well, you
okay?
got a hell of a library behind you right now.
Well,
Uh,
and people always say, did I read those books? And I will perfectly honest with you, I read
Mm.
90% of them.
That's not bad.
No, I'm just saying that,
Right.
you have to keep balance in life. So you can't read all day, but I do read a lot. And
That's
I'm
great.
just telling you,
Mhm.
1975, I finished Penn State. I
Mhm.
read the books they told me to read.
Mhm.
Those books did not get me where I am today. And I'm
Mhm.
not bragging where I am
Mhm.
today. I'm just saying it just, those books taught me how to teach education to children.
Yup. Mhm.
They didn't tell me how to be successful in
Mhm.
life, whether it's raising a family,
Mhm.
because I'm a coach
Yup.
and I am excellent at relationships. And the reason why I am is because I have over the last 25 years been dealing with relationships. So again, it comes with experience as well, but I have had situations where I had families that had some really, tough situations,
Mhm.
and I was able to walk through them only because my background from my parents taught me
Mhm.
in incredible values, incredible integrity, character, stuff like that that you just can't. You just you have. I don't know. You have to develop them. They're all developed. Leadership. I'll give you a perfect thing.
Please.
People say that leaders are born.
Mhm.
I don't
Mm.
believe that.
Mhm.
Leaders are developed.
Mhm.
I mean, I became a leader because of the development of this lifelong
Mhm.
process.
Well, you
And
use the quote, readers are leaders. And the fact is, that's an action step onto itself. Um, Can you give us an example? Back to what you just said a moment ago. Can you give us an example of a difficult hurdle that you feel proud of overcoming, that you now can share whatever that lesson with others? Have you seen that manifest? I love compounding, and that's why I'm asking. You went through a hurdle, it helped you, you shared it with others, and they were able to benefit from it. Can you think of an example that you're still drawing from, that you walked
Well,
through?
you talk about dwell. Yes, I
Mhm.
can. I can talk about dwell.
Mhm.
It's a fast forward in the process of my, uh, growth and my,
Mhm.
if you want to call quote success story. We'll
Right.
just call it. Back in 2008,
Mhm.
uh, and this is going to be off chart a little bit because I was then. I had this. We're going to back up and do it again, but just to answer your question,
Mhm.
I had an alpaca farm. I bought 80 acres up in the Allentown area,
Mhm.
and I was renting this farmhouse to a couple,
Mhm.
and they came to me. And again, we talk about courage. We talk about let's take a shot.
Yeah.
Let's think outside the box.
Mhm.
They said, "Hey Joe, have you ever thought about investing in alpacas?" And I said, "What the heck is an alpaca?"
Right. I was going to say, how many people would answer yes to that? But
Not
anyway,
from
all
the
right, right? Not
out.
me.
So, so I said, "No, I don't even know what alpaca is." They said, "But there's some money to be made there."
Mhm.
So I said, "Okay, let me." I went to 2 farm shows
Oh, my God.
with alpacas,
Mhm.
and John, I got to tell you the truth. There was three kinds of people there. One were lawyers,
Mm.
the other were doctors,
Mhm.
and the other one were farmers.
Okay.
The lawyers and the doctors were there because they were so stressed out with the daily routine of going to court and
Mm.
visiting. And for example, money isn't everything, but I say it ranks up there with oxygen. And that's just a joke. But I say that because I remember going into my doctor's office,
Mhm.
who's a professional, and people teach you to become a doctor or a lawyer.
Mhm.
My doctor was required by Penn Medicine, because he was in that network,
Right.
to see, I think it was 75 patients a day.
A day.
He was
Just break it out
stressed.
by the hours. Just even do the math. And you
It
talk
was,
about constant pressure.
yeah. So that's why the doctors were there. That's
Right.
why the lawyers were there.
I got
So
you.
long and short of it is, I said to him, "Okay, I'm open for it. Let's
Mhm.
take a shot."
Right.
Oh,
2008.
yeah. So we buy the alpacas.
Mhm.
Things are going good, and literally, it was like my real estate business. I mean, at that point, I had 18 rentals, so there was a duplication process.
Mhm.
So I go back to the alpacas, and the big thing, the way you were making money is not just
Mhm.
so much from the fleece, but from the duplication of the breeding.
So
So
were
I
you
put
able to then use that duplication process with the formula of the real estate to the alpaca farm?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, because our first alpaca
Mhm.
female
Mhm.
that we bred.
Mhm.
And alpacas, without making the whole science of it, you really had to deal with special colors and special genealogy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we had our first female, which your listeners will obviously, or viewers will obviously be shocked at this. But one alpaca was $20,000.
Oh my God.
So I bought 3 of them. One was a male, which I learned after you didn't have to, because you could have
Mhm.
gotten a breeder. But
Mhm.
long and short of it is, I bought 3 of them, and my first female that I bred, I paid 20,000 for her. Her first offspring was a female with a beautiful color
Mhm.
called rose color. I sold her for 22.
So I'm
I
doing the
already
math
do.
right. It's a 10% profit. If I'm doing the
I
math
still
right.
have the. I still have the goose that lays the golden egg. You follow me?
I certainly follow you. That's great.
I end up, though, here's the situation. We were
Yeah.
breeding and we were making money. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, if you remember 2008, 2009,
Oh, I remember.
through that whole crash,
Mhm.
I mean, I had 22 alpacas on my property. And the real estate market just sinks. The
Mhm.
economy sinks.
Mhm.
So all those people that were buying alpacas couldn't even afford their houses.
Let alone what I'm going to call a luxury item, which is
Correct.
owning an alpaca. When you
Correct.
say that, you know what I first thought when you said alpaca? Here's what ran through my mind. Michael Jackson owned alpacas.
Yes, he
So
did.
right away, I'm like, this is the level of where you're going. And now it's 2008, and I absolutely remember. I was in the broadcast ad sales space, and I can remember the horror that everything just stopped, and jobs were getting eliminated. So what'd you do?
Yeah. But I'm just going back to that obstacle to answer your question.
Yeah.
I had 22 alpacas on my farm, and there was nobody buying alpacas anymore.
Right.
Nobody. In fact, just to add more celebrities to it, Shaquille O'Neal had a huge alpaca farm.
There you go.
And the other reason why people were buying alpacas, they were an awesome tax deduction. Just so you know, they utilize that. Okay, so the bottom line is, I'm with 22 alpacas left. I probably have 20 times 20. What's that?
Well, that's 4,000.
40,000, right?
I'm getting 20 times 20. 0, 0, 0. I'm getting 4,000.
Well, each alpaca was worth 20,000.
Yeah, so it's right, and I'm at 400. If you're doing that, it's 400 grand.
400,000. I got $400,000 sitting on a farm that's worthless now.
Yeah.
So I put them up to auction, and we went to an auction, and this guy, he again, he's a professional. Not one of the alpacas sold that evening. I end up discounting the alpacas. I end up losing a lot of money. But you know what? I go back to attitude again.
Great.
I'm not going to quit.
Well, you cut the word out of the dictionary, so you can't.
Well, you kind of dust yourself off.
Okay.
And start over again. And by the way, I think it was Les Brown. He said, if you get knocked down, if you're looking up, you can get up.
Oh, I love
so
Les
I got
Brown.
knocked
That's
down.
great. Right?
So I got knocked down, and it was okay. And believe me, it's only an experience. It's only something that happens to you. It's not the end of the world. A lot of people in that situation goes into depression. They'll go into, they'll find all the reasons why something doesn't work instead of asking the right questions, which is part of my coaching business. Ask the right questions. I got 4 questions that I use on a problem. What's the problem? What caused the problem? What's the solution for the problem? And then what's the best solution for the problem? So you can come up with 10 solutions, and then you just pick one at the end because you already identified the problem. But a lot of people won't stop back. And I say it again, writing things down is probably the most transitional thing you can do in times of reflection for yourself.
Why?
Well, because I'll give you another example. Any kind of goal setting measure, you are, if you read any information, any real expert information, they're going to tell you, number 4 on my book is write it down. Okay. So you write it down. So now you're writing down your action plan. You're writing down your goals, but what you do in the writing down process is an affirmation. So let me tell you what I used to do for my, it was actually I'm going to move forward a little bit because after the real estate business and before the alpaca business, I had a friend of mine in your area at that ice rink in, it was Harrogate actually, down at lower Northeast Philly.
I got you.
And I worked at this ice rink, and a friend of mine, and he was from St. Tim's, and I can say that because you know St. Tim's.
Oh my God, you see my light up when you say that. That's not far from me. I love it. Yup.
So he was an excellent disc jockey. All right. But his equipment was raunchy, horrible looking, but he was just hustling, struggling. And I thought again from my business mind, and this business mind came from the books. It came from the books. It didn't come from Joe Turchi. I'm just telling you that right now. Any viewer, any listener, readers are leaders. Books create miracles. So anyway, long and short of it is, that's probably why when I set this goal, I said to myself, I'm going to write this year, in 2021, January, I said to myself, I'm going to publish 3 books. That was a goal I wrote down. That was an affirmation that I stuck by. In April, I wrote 7 Laws and Principles of Government Success. And that's what I have there. It's a proven, simple step process to achieve happiness and less stress. So read that book if you want less stress and you want some happiness. I'm telling you, it'll change an attitude. That's why I did it, though. I didn't do it for me, even though it was my personal goal. I did it for readers. I know there's a lot out there to change. I can serve a lot of people and help a lot of people with just the stuff. On the quotationary end of it,
right.
What I did there was I kept thinking, the way these quotations are, I ought to make a dictionary out of this. It's a reference book, not just a book to read. It's a reference book, and that's how I wrote it. I collaborated all these quotations after I read them and had them, and I went to a church person of mine who does the church bulletin, and she's acknowledged in my book, dedicated the book to her. I said, Julie, I need you to do me a favor. I have all these things, but you have a genius mind. Could you kind of create this into a dictionary form? She came up with all these: leadership, ability, champion, quit. She came up with all these, and then I put the package back together and published the book. So,
oh my God, this to me is genius that you were also resourceful. I love that. You were talking about peaceful, and I'm thinking calm, and you forgot a quote that I happen to like. It's the first of a series of quotes in the category. And now that I understand better as it regards to the formatting of it, now I like it even better, right? But one of them, it was from all people, Thomas Jefferson, where you talk about nothing gives one person so much advantage over another as to remain always cool and unruffled under all circumstances. So here's my question to you, which is this. You get knocked back with having a series of alpacas. It's not just resilience. I'm going to bet you didn't make frantic decisions. How do you remain calm under pressure? Then and now, either. Whatever. How do you remain calm under pressure?
I'm going to tell you the absolute, not that I'm not telling the truth, but the gut. I'm going to the gut.
Yeah, please.
And I don't know how your listeners are going to deal with this one. I went to God.
Okay, great. Oh, yep, go. Okay.
I have a routine for me. It's for my personal routine. And again, from my story, I went to Catholic school and taught, all the stuff you're supposed to be taught, meaning communion and confirmation and all the stuff that you do in Catholic school. That did not make me a good Christian. I'll just tell you that right now.
That's so funny. You're answering a question for me that I was prepared to ask. This is great, which is, I read a review that starts with the topic, and I love this, it's literally talking about stop procrastinating, right? And calling it a must read. The review starts with even, hey, it begins with faith. So my question was going to be, and you're already answering it, so thank you for being also visionary, which is, has your faith evolved? And I'm guessing the answer is yes, based on what you're saying. So my question is, how? How has it evolved?
Well, there again, I'm just going to do this. This is another quote from a mentor of mine who's passed away now. He lived in Mechanicsburg. But this is where, again, I go back to my book, Just Leaders and Readers. He said, 5 years from now, and this is for your readers and viewers.
Right.
5 years from now, you will become the person that will be based on the books you read and the people you associate with. So at that point in time, I've already developed, I was a motivational speaker as well. I was a motivational speaker for 12 years. And in that motivational run,
right,
I was dealing with some really, really great Christian men.
Mm.
So they took me from this crazy Italian kid from South Philadelphia, Catholic, that had no clue really about God, except
But you
what,
knew all the rules and regs.
oh yeah, no, it was all about our works instead of really
Mhm.
our faith.
Okay, got it.
I mean, if you want to go back, it was about our works. All right,
Yeah.
if I'm a good boy, I'm going to be great. God's going to love me.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily true. Although we're supposed to be good,
Mhm.
but you have to have more faith in God.
Mhm.
And faith is the conqueror of fear.
Mm.
And fear is false evidence of something that appears real.
Mhm.
The acronym.
Mhm.
And I teach acronyms all the time in a lot of the
Yep.
courses I teach,
Mhm.
but that's what fear represents, false
Mhm.
evidence. And in fact, for your readers and
Mhm.
viewers again, or for listeners, I have done research that they've done research where we all worry about stuff. We get nervous about stuff. So if I have this research and I just got blown out with $400,000 worth of alpacas, plus by the way, all my investments just
Oh,
sunk.
oh, right.
Just sunk.
Mhm.
I'll just share one more obstacle, which I had a shore house property, not a shore house, a beachfront property in Florida
Mhm.
that the hurricane hit it 4 times in 3 years that I owned it.
That's a
Not
lot. That's a lot.
so, but here's the faith again.
First 3 times weren't enough. Fourth time I had to come through. Jesus. So right. So now talk to me. How
Well,
do you walk? How do you walk gracefully through that?
I'm going to tell you something.
Mm.
There's a reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is not in my power. I don't know. There's so many ways you can look at this, and there's so
Mm-hmm.
many listeners that are going to just turn me off right away, and it's okay.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm just telling you me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you me.
Yeah.
I would be, I would be nowhere
Mm-hmm.
without my faith in God,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be nowhere with the association I had with some of the men in my motivational, period of
Mm-hmm.
time that helped me walk through the process of
Mm-hmm.
belief.
Mm-hmm.
Help me walk through the process of there's a reason for everything, and in the end it's all going to work out, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
It does. I mean, most of your millionaires, billionaires,
Mm-hmm.
in the first process they lost their first million.
Mm-hmm.
They might have lost their second million.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy one time, a friend of mine, he calls me up and he knew I was like somewhat savvy with finances.
Yeah.
And he calls me up. He says, Joe, he says, listen, I got a problem. I said, what's up, Jimmy? He said, Jimmy, of course, he's South Philly Italian.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go there, John.
You gotta. You gotta. You
But
gotta.
anyway, he says, I don't know what to do. My 401k is down 50,000.
Uh-huh.
I said, Jimmy, relax. It'll make a comeback. I just lost $1.5 million, so don't worry about your 50,000. And it's just that. Where does that go back? It goes back to faith, and it goes back to attitude.
So here's my question in regards to both. As you say that, what was it about those men that were different? Because I vacillate a lot. You said you're just you. I really vacillate a lot in regards to belief and non-belief. What was it about those individuals that instilled something in you that was different, believable, and sustainable? What was it about them? What do you remember? Was it specific actions, words, things?
It was heart. It was heart.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, and I can tell you where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Most of the time in business, most of the time in environmental situations, my experience, most of the people are going to be, what's in it for me?
Right.
How do I, I mean, this is a dog eat dog world. Let's face it, and that's how our environment exists.
Mm-hmm.
These men were not there. These men were giving you a hand up,
Okay.
instead of pushing you down.
Mm-hmm.
Their heart was right, and the way we were doing this business model,
Mm-hmm.
everybody supported each other. Everybody helped each other. You were in the game together, and you weren't. It wasn't a I'll just do this from a leadership standpoint. You have managers who are managers that sometimes really just micromanage you and
Yeah.
are not interested in your
Mm-hmm.
success.
Mm-hmm.
A true leader wants to teach you and me and my coaching, me and my coaching. My whole mission in my coaching, my favorite part of my coaching is to watch the transformation of some coachee, which I call them coachees. I don't like the word client for me, so I call them coachees. And I
I
say,
may need to steal that. I'll always give you credit, but I may need to steal it. I love it. Go ahead.
well, I'll give you my other things that I have everybody steal. But anyway,
Okay, good.
how I wake up every day, remind me of that. But
Yep.
anyway, my coachees,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite part of coaching, and I used to coach groups.
Mm-hmm.
I love one-on-one coaching now.
Mm-hmm.
I love it because I can literally get a handle on the transformation that I'm literally watching in front of my eyes of whether it's a female or a male and their personal growth. And you talk about the obstacles. What we do is we just overcome obstacles. They have obstacles in their life, and I just, between the two of us, we come up with a plan. And I usually start my model is we have a 30-day plan. So we have the plan. Now it's plans written down in case I didn't get that message across.
I was going to say, hey, by the way, as you just reinforced the write it down, here is a shout out to Coach Corey Disson, who, by the way, as I said, is the one who was kind enough to introduce me to you, Coach Joe. And Corey, if you're listening, major shout out. But one of his big things is he talks about document with a D and write it down. So as I said, some real successful people are modeling what you're saying. So go ahead, man. So that 30-day plan, write it down.
Awesome. Corey is awesome. Give him a shout out to me as well.
100%.
I love Corey.
100%.
I go back a lot of years with Corey, and he's a top-notch winner, leader, coach.
Who writes stuff down. And that's what I'm saying from you. So you're encouraging in this 30-day plan to document, write stuff down. So please continue.
And within
the transformation.
Within that document, we only work on it. It's not going to be a long. Now, I teach and coach short term, midterm, and long term. But this first, start is write it down what we really want to accomplish. And then we go do it, meaning we execute it. But then after we do it, within the 30 days, we plan, do, and then we evaluate it. We make sure plan, do, we check it, make sure how the plan's working. And if the plan is not working, we call it audible and make an adjustment. So that's 30 days. Now we can do this on an incremental, monthly basis and just start, just like, they talk about how do you climb Mount Everest? It's one step at a time, so it's, everything's like chunked out. It's not, we're running like kind of a journey, not like a sprint to get there right away. So that's kind of how I, work out the plan, but we will pick 2-year plans, 1 year plan, and then monthly plans. And but again, if I go back again and say, okay, hey, how did I do this?
Right.
I literally, even though we missed that disc jockey. Let me do the disc jockey story first, where I created.
Please,
right.
yes.
Listen, I have a habit of jumping all over the place.
That's okay, but I wouldn't have let you forget. That's okay. I love it.
But I have fun doing it, and all I do is when I coach, to tell you the truth, I end the session with, "Can you give me a few nuggets?" And I won't let them leave before they give me a couple, 2 to 3 nuggets of what we accomplished today or what we learned today. So I'm hoping the listeners and viewers are just going to get a couple nuggets. I mean, I'm off the charts with energy. I'm off the charts with enthusiasm. And if that's something you want to walk away with, great. But I always say, at least to me, tell a story to make a point. And I get off the charts, and my wife actually goes like this: "Would you slow down and stop?" I said, "No, I'm telling a story to make a point."
So before you tell the DJ story, to set up as what you brought up, so with Leslie, that's been with you for all of this, was Leslie around for the DJ story?
Yes.
Great. Well, then we'll ask about Leslie after, but tell the story.
All right. So I'll just say this right now. Leslie is a saint. All my friends say she's going directly to heaven. If you can deal with me, you're going to heaven. But she's a saint also because the beautiful thing about our relationship is that she just let me run.
Wow.
I had the ideas. We're both two different personalities, but she never got in my way. You know, you have personalities where some partners will get in your way. She never got in my way. And that was the beauty of this relationship because if she got in my way, I would not be telling you the story today.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that right now.
Love it.
But anyway, boom, fast forward, magic of thinking big again. My partner had the raunchy disc jockey equipment. Yep. We are literally in a room, a small office, probably by 4 by 6, in this office at the rec center on an ice rink. And I said to him, I said, Billy, his name was Billy. Although he was an Irish guy, I still call him Billy. Most people call him Bill. I call him Billy because you can't. I got a brother Chucky. I got a brother Artie. I got a sister Denise. They call her Niecy.
That's so Philly. That is so Philly. So Billy is there with his raunchy equipment, and
so I said, Billy, how much does a set of equipment cost? And he says about $1,500. I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to give you $1,500. I want you to go buy a set of equipment. This way you look presentable. And for right now, let's come up with a number that I'll just take a percentage since I'm investing in you. And he said, fine. So we came up with a percentage. I saw, again, go get the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. It'll change your thinking all the time because after 6 months, 6 to 9 months, I ended the agreement. And it was only a handshake agreement. I ended it. I said, Billy, listen to me. My duplication thought process went again. I said, Billy, we're making money with 1 set. Why not go get 2 sets? Wow. He said, you're crazy. I said, I'm not crazy. Just hang with me. We went and got 2 sets. We did 3 sets. We did 4 sets. Now he's the disc jockey expert. All I was kind of the visionary, the creative guy. Okay. So and then again, through that process, we end up having 35 disc jockeys, all in Northeast Philly, by the way. And our company was the number 2 disc jockey company on the East Coast. But we were in all the local bars in Northeast Philly, just doing DJs from Thursday.
I'm guessing every wedding. There are a lot of weddings in Northeast Philly.
Weddings,
and as they learned, a lot of second weddings too. So just a lot of weddings. And so, and so you're the number. That's a spectacular story. But I'm going to add one thing to what you said, which is I was just the visionary. If I heard you correctly, you were also the one that was brave. You were the one that was able to not just see, but navigate someone else so that they would go along with you because you felt the resistance. What do you mean? You're crazy. I'm not. That's the traits to me that I'm also really seeing too. I love how self-effacing you are. Hey, I'm just the visionary. Hey, she thinks I'm crazy. But that you're able to ride this wave and all of the turbulence for this period of time, I just think is stunning to me. And that you built that monster through the power of duplication. By the way, that's one of the nuggets I'll be taking away. But let me ask you something. In this day and age, you touched upon it earlier in the conversation, where things are fragmented and a little bit more challenging in a world, or at least from my vantage point, where things are so polarized. I fall prey to it. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm really not. I absolutely fall prey to that. Whether you believe or not, or who you vote for or not, or this or that, right? How are you able to navigate doing what you do, helping people and serving people in a way when there is so much division in regards to this or that?
That's a good question. I hope I answered accurately because I did say to you, or appropriately, I should say. Yeah. I did say to you, attitude is a whole bunch of the stuff. It's how we handle things is 90%, but the attitude, I wake up every day, which I told you I was going to share this with you. I've been doing this for years and years and years. And it goes back to the quotationary manifesto. I've been reading quotes of positivity. See, because let's face it, if we go to the gym, we expect results because we're doing some work. Our mind is the same thing. I tell now you're going to laugh at this one, but I live in this cabin on 91 acres. Okay. And when the guys were building the cabin, I didn't have a pond. I had just a field. I said, I want a pond in there. And they said, what? I said, I want you to excavate a pond. They said, well, you have to have springs. I said, well, go dig it and find out if we have springs. So again, I'm thinking big, but I'm expecting optimism, not pessimism. Okay.
Right.
When I was teaching, my motto was this: Monday, I was marvelous. I woke up marvelous. Begins with an M. Tuesday's terrific. Wednesday begins with a W, so I'm wonderful. Thursday's tremendous. Friday's fantastic. Saturday is super. And on Sundays, I feel stupendous. That's it. All right.
That's a lot.
To get by your division, again, I'm going to go back to a book. And How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. He teaches, which I teach my acronyms, CCC. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'm going to tell you, I can raise my hand years ago, like you did, and have this judgmentality about other people and not practice the CCCs. However, I'm just going to go back to when I became a better human being, a better, quote, Christian. If you go to the book of Peter, First Peter, his whole message is the most powerful muscle in our body is our tongue. Our tongue can destroy people or it can lift them up. I get my tongue to work on encouragement now instead of criticism.
Hey, give us the 3 C's one more time. Don't
criticize, condemn, or complain.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. So let me ask you this in terms of just as, because I feel like I could literally go endlessly here, but I just had a couple more questions, which is number one. How do people take the actions to become that better person? In addition to work with you, right? In addition to work with you, what would you suggest are a couple, even one thing they could do now to move off of that dime, to put themselves in a position where they could absorb this information, where they could transform themselves?
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
2 things.
Great.
And once again,
Two's
in case
better.
I haven't had this, if I haven't had the theme, readers are leaders, I'll try that again. But I'll use another book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey.
Thank you.
In his message, he talks about being proactive. You have to do something. It doesn't come to you. So there's no free lunch out here, so you got to go after it. And that's what I did. And when I, graduated Penn State and saw that the picture I didn't like, you have to flip the script and change the picture. That's all. So to do that, his first one is be proactive. His second one is think with the end in mind.
Okay.
Already see it. Already see the picture. It's called the power of intention. You already intend to have. And when you have these affirmations that you create for yourself, I am already driving a blue Cadillac, if a Cadillac is what you want.
Yeah.
I am already living in a shore house. In 1995, my parents, we always went down the shore to have a shore house, and my father couldn't afford it.
Right.
So he'd get 2 weeks and pay for it. I was determined. I remember at Penn State, I came there as a college student in this place that we were living with the 9 kids still. I knew he was broke. I knew he couldn't afford it. I determined that day, and I'll never forget it. We were down at the beach. I determined that day I will buy a shore house for my parents. And in 1985, I did it.
It happened. Oh.
It happened. I made it happen. All right. But the last thing I'm going to share with you in terms of how it gets done.
Yeah.
His 7th habit is called sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw is probably the most biggest tool that I used, because while I was developing my real estate business,
Right.
while I was developing the disc jockey business, I literally disappeared from my family. I took retreats. I would come up to this cabin before I lived here and spend the weekend, and my whole table that I'm sitting on right now was full of notes, full of dreams, full of things that are possibilities. And I'd write them down, and I'd see them, and I start feeling them. They'd start running through my blood, and all I had to do is go back to Philadelphia and make it happen. So the word is execution, but you have to sharpen the saw. You have to do something. And I say this, I mean, today, there's so much talk, and there's so many books that are great out there that talk about visualization, manifestation. It all works if you do it. So you have to, so to answer your question, any listener or any reader, do yourself a favor. Disappear for a couple hours by yourself and reflect. Figure out what you want to do. But you can't do it with your kids running around. You can't do it. You can't do it. You have to, you know what I used to do? My kids laugh at me. When I go to the beach, when I go to the beach house, we have a beach house. They go to the beach. I go to the library for 2 hours. They laugh at me.
I'll bet they don't laugh at you, probably with you, but I'll bet you not at you. Hey, you just said something. It's my last question for now. Those 3 kids that you've got in that fold, what would you want to convey to them now in end 2022, so to speak? What would be something, a message that you want to share that would benefit your kids, which will obviously benefit everybody?
I'll just tell you this.
Yeah.
My daughter just came up with my 3 grandchildren for Thanksgiving because of her timing.
Yep. That's awesome.
We had Thanksgiving this Saturday. And again, I'm totally family oriented. I got 3 beautiful children that accomplished every goal they possibly, because their dad was always helping them through the process of goal setting. My one daughter, Taylor, we have time to tell a great story?
One more, sure. The answer is absolutely yes. No buts. Yes.
Okay. My daughter, Taylor, my youngest, she's the most best coached family member I have, because she's now the youngest female associate director of a huge, huge pharmaceutical company in the country. She's only 31. Wow. Youngest female, youngest associate director. But anyway, that's because she followed a system, a pattern that I just taught everybody on this. All right. But to answer your question, when she was 12 years old, comes to me, and now I was also a coach for years. I coached the kids. I coached a lot of sports. And she comes to me, and she just picked up a field hockey stick, and she says, Dad, listen, I have a problem. The coach isn't watching me. She doesn't know how good I am. I said, well, I'm going to share with you then. The coach isn't looking at you very well, because I didn't say you stink, because that would be negative. I said, because you're not performing the skills that you should do. Go back and show her some more stuff. Don't even come back to me. I'm a coach. Well, I know the coach has to see more. She goes back. She comes back again. She says, Dad, we got to talk about this. I said, what do we got to talk about now? She says, all my friends, now she's 12. She says, all my friends have cell phones and I don't. Now, my rule was if you're 16, you get a cell phone. She says, all my friends have cell phones and I don't. How come? What's wrong? I said, you know why? Because your friends don't live here. She looked at me like I was crazy, and she didn't laugh like you.
I think that's great.
I laughed. So now she comes back again, and she says, times have changed, Dad. I said, I'll tell you what. She came the week before, if you remember, about the field hockey stick. Not good. I said, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with you. Times have changed. Now, she was a freshman. I said, the day you start field hockey, I will be the one who will buy your first phone, but you know the rules. You got to pay for the phone. I'll just buy it. But the day you start field hockey for your team, I was a freshman. 4 weeks later, I'm leaving my school. I get a call from my wife. She says, get ready to buy the phone because your daughter's starting today. John, I'm telling you, I had tears in my eyes.
I'll bet you did.
The whole trip, and all the messages, put the right carrot in front of people, they're going to work for it.
I'm going to end
Put
with
the
this.
carrot.
Yeah, I'm going to end with this, which is you described early on the last message you got leaving high school. And I compare that to the message that you instilled in your daughter, and to think of the difference of the beautiful difference, as opposed to a negative, you'll be the best ditch digger, as opposed to you make the team of, all that stuff, instilling sensible and visionary principles. It's an amazing story, and it just excites me, sends chills through me. So, Coach Joe Turchi, what are the best ways that people can reach you? What would you, like I said, as we drop all these links are here, but what's the best way, preferred way to get to you?
I'll give you my personal phone number first, because I operate out of my first. It's 267
right
49 5015.
Wow. A 267?
249
Yep.
5015.
Beautiful.
All right. And then I have, I'll give you, again, I have two
your
emails.
LinkedIn profile, absolutely, because you're a LinkedIn maniac in a great way. That's going to be in there as well, too.
And I have a website for my coaching. And I'll spell that because I did it a little different. It's called Inspirus, INSPIRUS.
Yep.
Now, if you look at Inspirus, anybody, there's no E in there. That confuses people, but I liked it that way. InspireUsLifeCoaching.com. I have a website, and I have all the methods and tools, as well as testimonies that we use in the system that we use. And
links to your books, right? And links to your books and all that stuff will be there too, right?
It links to the 7 laws. That site was up actually before I linked the Quotationary Manifesto. But if they go to Amazon, just look at Coach Turchi or Quotationary Manifesto.
It's great. Coach Joe Turchi, you absolutely inspired me, and I know that you've inspired our viewers and listeners too. I thank you so much for being a part of this and sharing what you know. It's a lot, man. It's a lot, and I'm very grateful for you. Thank you.
Well, I am appreciative to you, John, just to put me up there. And, my whole message is to see if we can help other people. That's the bottom line. Nuggets, any nuggets somebody takes and runs with it, you and I that's a success story right there, just because you and I shared it with somebody else. And that's how I feel about it. And I just appreciate you having me on your show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Love to come back another day.
That sounds like fun to me too. That sounds like fun to me as well. And folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. John Duffin from Duffin Media here, thanking Coach Joe Turchi and thanking all of you. Keep watching, liking, sharing, commenting, all that stuff. And we will keep coming back, driving more content to help you find your best, most powerful, authentic voice. Have a great day, all. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John. Have a great day, my friend.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.